All right. So now we will be having our second lesson in English for academics and professional purposes. But before that, let's have a short recap of what we had tackled last meeting. So again, we had tackled about English academic writing or academic text. And then we do have our practice and drills for that. And you have your first writing output, which is an academic essay. Okay, now we will be talking about academic pa din, but now it's an academic language. Okay, so ano nga ba or what is the language to be used now when it comes to academic writing or academic text? Now, what kind of language, okay, we are going to use when it comes to writing your academic text, no? So before that, let's have this mini tawag dito, activity. So as you can see no, in my screen here, I have the word thank you. Okay, so would you mind not to tell me what is thank you in different languages? Okay, let's say for example, what is thank you when it comes to Korean language? Okay, so what is thank you when it comes to Korean language? So may nakakaalam ba? Yes, Marielle.
감사합니다 po.
All right, so 감사합니다. No, thank you in Korean language. How about thank you when it comes to Spanish language? What thank you when it comes to Spanish? Yes, Sander.
Gracias po.
Okay, very good. So gracias. How about what is thank you in Japanese? When we say Japanese, what is thank you in Japanese? Yes, Jeremy.
Arigato gozaimasu.
Okay, so arigato gozaimasu or arigato. Okay, how about in Thai language or in Thailand? What is thank you when it comes to Thai language or Thailand? How about the others? What is thank you when it comes to Thai? Ang nakakaalam? Yes, sige, Jeremy.
Kopkun kap.
Okay, very good. No, so it can be kapun kap or kapun ka. Okay, so that is thank you when it comes to Thailand, arigato in Japanese, gracias in Spain, and kamsahamnida in Korean. Okay, so how about the word good morning? Okay, so when we say good morning in Spanish, no, how do we say good morning when it comes to Spanish? Yes, Rona.
Buenos días.
Okay, very well. So we do say good morning in Spanish as buenos dias. How about in Japanese? No, how do we say good morning in Japanese? Yes, Nikolai.
Ohio.
Okay, Ohio or Ohio gozaimasu. Okay, so that is good morning. Okay, and then how about good morning in French? Okay, how do we say good morning when it comes to French or French language? Yes, Trisha.
Bonjour.
Okay, so we do say bonjour. Okay, so when it comes to French, no, a good morning is bonjour. In Japanese is ohayo gozaimasu. In Spanish is buenos dias. Okay, so how about this last word? How do we say I love you when it comes to Korean language? Okay, so of course, no, alam na alam yun ng mga nanonood ng K-drama. Okay, so yes, Rona, what is I love you in Korean?
사랑해요.
Okay, sarangheyo or saranghe. How about in Spanish? How do we say I love you when it comes to Spanish language? Yes, Sander.
Te amo.
Okay, te amo. Okay, so when it comes to special someone, pa pwede rin naman when it comes to family or friends, no, we can also say te quiero. Okay, so how about in Japanese? How do we say the word I love you in Japanese? How do we say that word in Japanese? Yes, Harris.
Aishiteru.
Okay, very good. So that is aishiteru. Now, when it comes to Japanese language. And then lastly, how do we say I love you when it comes to Chinese? Paano naman
Aini.
kapag Chinese? Yes, Jeremy.
Wo aini po.
Okay, very good. No, we do say wu ai ni. Okay, when it comes to Chinese, aishiteru in Japanese, te amo in Spanish, and saranghe or sarangheo in Korean. Okay, so those are the different languages. Okay, so also when it comes to academic writing and academic text, no, meron din tayong tinatawag na academic language. Okay, so what kind of academic language kaya no ang ginagamit when it comes to academic writing? So let's find out what is the characteristics no, of those of the academic language to be used no, in academic writing. So first of all, before we go to that, now let us first define what is language. Okay, so ano nga ba yung language? So for a while, kindly watch this video first.
What is language? Language is one of the defining features of what it means to be human. As the philosopher René Descartes once said, there is no other animal, however perfect and fortunately situated, that can put words together in a manner to convey their thoughts. All animals communicate, of course, but the way they communicate isn't anywhere close to being as flexible, wide-ranging, or nuanced as us. Language is so fundamental to our nature that it's used as a test to distinguish humans from robots. It was language, above all else, which let the human race turn itself from just another inhabitant of planet Earth into one which now dominates the rest of the animal kingdom. Language first developed about 100,000 years ago, allowing people to work together and shape the society they were living in. 5,000 years ago, writing was invented. This revolutionized the way we record history and pass knowledge on from generation to generation. But what exactly is language? By the age of 3, almost all children have an expert knowledge of how to use it. But a knowledge of precisely what constitutes the phenomenon of language is much more elusive. According to the linguist Edward Sapir, language can be defined as a purely human and non-distinctive method of communicating ideas, emotions, and desires by means of a system of voluntarily produced symbols. These symbols can be made by speech, writing, or sign language. And although we might think of language as mostly consisting of words and the way they're combined, other things like gestures, tone of voice, and accent are all part of the way we communicate. Then there's the technology we use to communicate. These days, this often means computers and smartphones, but writing itself is a technology. So is paper, ink, and all sorts of other things. Every new technology that comes along alters the way we communicate. Some people take a very prescriptive view of how language should be used. But in reality, it's changing all the time. It doesn't degenerate, just adapts to the different contexts in which it's used. Language is also fundamental to our culture. It's a badge of identity, both for individuals and groups, but this can lead to prejudice. People make assumptions about everything from someone's education to their moral values based on how they speak. Language also mediates the way we experience and understand the world. It influences the way we relate to each other. And ultimately, it's connected to almost everything we do in society.
Okay, so that is language, no, in overall. Okay, so now we will be talking about language no, that is used in academic writing. Okay, yung tinatawag nating academic language. So when we say academic language, though, it represents the language demands of the school. Okay, academic language as well includes language used in textbooks, whether in classrooms, on tests, and in each discipline. Okay, so we do have different languages there when it comes to different disciplines. So when it comes to the medical field, when it comes to the business fields, now we do have different languages or terminologies that we use. It is different in vocabulary and structure from the everyday spoken English of social interactions. Okay, so because we do not use we do not use casual or conversational language. Okay, we do use a more formal language. No, when it comes to academic writing, no, not the typical one that we are using in a conversation. Now, each type of communication, both academic and social, has its purpose, no, and neither is superior to the other. Okay, so let's find out pa what academic language is naman. Okay, kanina is language. Ngayon, ano naman si academic language? Okay, so for a while again, kindly watch this short video presentation of what academic language is.
Is academic language. The words you choose to use in your work convey your tone, attitude, and purpose. In this case, you are writing for an academic and professional audience, and your word choice should match this. There are a few simple points to remember here. First, avoid using contractions. This is very simple to implement. Just by writing words such as can't, wasn't, and there's out in full, cannot, was not, and there is. Your text is already that much more academic and professional. Second, avoid using phrasal verbs. A phrasal verb is a verb plus a preposition, such as to set up, and they are typically seen as informal. There is almost always a more academic alternative, and this alternative is only one word and is generally longer. For set up, this could be to establish or to assemble. What would be academic formal synonyms for the other 5 phrasal verbs? For to win over, we could say to persuade or to convince instead. Someone who should see to a task can also execute a task or ensure something is completed. Retrieve, regain, and recover are only a few possibilities for to get back, all depending on what the context is. And finally, an academic alternative for to put up with could be to endure. Once again, all these synonyms are more academic than the phrasal verbs. Finally, avoid using simple and informal language. Some good examples of simple and informal words are the following: to buy, to get, a lot of, thing, good, bad, like. Each of these also has numerous academic alternatives that are much more concise and nuanced in their meaning. Once again, context is important to know which academic synonym would be best to use, but some examples for these usual suspects are purchase, acquire for to buy, obtain, achieve, receive, to mention just a few, for to get. We see quite a lot of, which should be replaced with substantial, numerous, many, and so on. Thing could really mean anything. By using thing, you are signalling to the reader that you either A, do not have the range in vocabulary to provide the real word, or B, that you could not be bothered to find the time to think of the actual word you would like to use. We usually see this when the writer would like to add another point, such as, another thing that should be considered is, and then thing could mean aspect, point, issue, or advantage. Options here are almost endless. The same holds true for good and bad, which could refer to something positive or negative, strong or weak, or advantageous or disadvantageous, etc. And finally, such as, for example, and for instance, are better alternatives to use than like. So, In summary, the top 3 aspects in which you can ensure your writing is more formal is to avoid using contractions, avoid using phrasal verbs, and avoid using informal language. While writing, you should have an online thesaurus open to help you come up with academic alternatives, always remembering to double-check the meaning.
Okay, so when it comes to academic language again, no, always avoid contractions, avoid phrasal verbs. Okay, so we do have terminologies and other terms or words, no, for those words, not to make it more formal and shorter. And also, we do not use informal language. Okay, so yun yung katangian or dapat na function ng academic language. No, we should refrain no of these 3 contractions, phrasal verbs, and informal languages.
Of the synonym.
Okay, kagaya ng academic writing, okay? So kagaya rin academic text, no, the last time that we had discussed, academic language also must be informal, okay, objective as well as technical. Okay? So academic language must be formal. Okay, just like what I mentioned, is avoid casual or conversational such as contractions given earlier, not informal vocabulary. Okay, so that's why it becomes formal. Academic language naman is subjective. No, not a subjective one. Bakit? Because we should avoid personal or direct reference to people or feelings. Okay, so sineset aside natin yung feelings and we are not directing people. Okay, when it comes to being objective, no, of the academic language. As well as in technical no aspect of academic language. No, we do uses vocabulary specific to the discipline. Okay, if we are talking about medical fields, then we do use medical terminologies. If we are talking about business fields, then we do use business terminologies. Okay, so again, academic language is formal, okay, objective, and technical. Okay, let's further discuss that one. So wait lang. All right. So formal, objective, technical. Okay, formal pa rin. Choose formal instead of informal vocabulary. So one example of it is somewhat. Okay, use somewhat instead of a bit. Okay? So pwede nating palitan yung word na a bit, no bit, by replacing it, no the word somewhat. It is more formal. Okay? We should also replace the word not enough, okay, by the word insufficient. Okay? So mas formal kasi when it comes to the word insufficient, no, rather than using the word not enough. Okay? So those are some of the words. No, later on I will be giving you tawag dito, another set of terminologies and words, no, na that you should replace, no, in order for you to make it more formal. Next, objective. Move information around in the sentence to emphasize things and ideas instead of people and feelings. No? For example, instead of writing, I believe, no, the model is valid based on these findings. Okay, so that is not being objective, that is being subjective because you are only basing no on your opinion. Okay, so there is a presence of pronoun I here. No, I believe. Okay, dapat hindi ganon. That will be subjective. Okay, to make it more objective, we do write no this example. These findings indicate that the model is valid. Okay, so hindi natin sinasabi yung saloobin natin. No, we are basing on a fact. Okay, on the findings. No, kaya pwede natin sabihin these findings indicate that the model is valid. Okay, so refrain from using I believe, in my opinion. Okay, I think. Okay, so refrain from using those. No, that will make the academic text of yours a subjective one. Na dapat objective po tayo. Next, technical. No, you need to develop a large vocabulary for the concepts specific to the discipline or specialization no, you are writing for. To do this, take note of terminology now used by your lecturer and tutor. Okay, so on and so forth. So when we say technical, these are technical terms lang, not that we are using for the different disciplines. No, you can browse dictionary if you want, thesaurus, no, if you want, no, for this technical terminologies that is being used no, for the different disciplines. Next again, so when it comes to being formal, you should avoid contractions. For example, no, use did not now rather than didn't. No, you know what contractions are naman na, di ba? So, dapat ginagamit natin is binubuo, hindi yung pinapaiksi. Okay, did not rather than didn't. Okay, should not rather than shouldn't. No, would not rather than wouldn't. Okay, so refrain using contractions. Next, being objective again. Avoid evaluative words that are based on non-technical judgments and feelings. Okay? So dapat hindi daw tayo nagbe-base on non-technical judgment tsaka feelings. No? Ano yung example niya? Okay? So use valid or did not demonstrate instead of amazing and disappointment. Okay, when it comes to amazing kasi tsaka disappointment, no, kasama yung feelings natin doon. Okay, wow, that is amazing. Okay? Okay, I am very disappointed. Okay, that is being subjective. Okay? But instead of saying such words, no, we do have words that is more objective na kapalit ng amazing tsaka disappointment. Okay? Pwede siyang maging valid o kaya naman I did not demonstrate no, para sa disappointed. Okay? So we should think of other words no, for those words that we can say subjective. No? Kasi dapat objective tayo. Okay? So when it comes to technical term naman, no, be careful daw about the meaning of a technical term. Bakit? Okay, meron po kasi tayo mga words no, na pare-parehas pero magkakaiba ng meaning when it comes to the different disciplines. Okay? Meron tayong mga terminologies dyan na tayo dito magkakaiba no, ang meaning sa iba't ibang disciplines, no, sa iba't ibang fields such as the word discourse. Okay? So napakaraming meaning niya. No, ang set, no, the word set, di ba na? If I'm not mistaken, if still, no, the word set is the tawag dito, the numerous, no, or ang pinakamaraming definition no, in a dictionary, no, the word set. Next, formal. Again, avoid emotional language. Okay, for example, instead of strong words such as wonderful or terrible, no, use more moderate word lang daw, such as helpful or problematic. Okay, so do not use emotional language. Okay, so pwede natin palitan yan ng other terminologies. Okay, so next, being objective naman, avoid intense or emotional evaluative language. Ganun pa din. For example, instead of saying or instead of writing, parents who smoke are obviously abusing their children. That is being subjective. Okay, because you are talking about people. No, you are directly talking about people references, no, or feelings. Okay, so that is not being objective. Para maging objective siya, we should rephrase that into this one. Secondhand smoke has some harmful effects on children's health. Okay? So yun na lang ang gamitin natin, secondhand smoke, not the parents. Okay? Parents who smoke are obviously abusing their children. Okay, that is too direct. Okay? So we should be objective here. No, secondhand smoke has some harmful effects on children's health. Okay? So when it comes to technical, so yun pa rin naman yan, no, technical terms din yan for the different disciplines. Lastly is for objective. Okay, find authoritative sources such as authors, researchers, and theorists no, in books or articles no, who support your point of view and refer to them in your writing. Ito yung mga ginagawa sa research natin. Let's say, for example, you are about to give a definition for a certain terminology. Okay, pwede tayong kumuha ng mga informations for those experts no, dun sa mga sinabi nila. Let's say, for example, okay, language. Okay, ito yung dapat hindi gawin. Rather, language is, in my view, no, is clearly something social. Okay, so hindi po pwede yun because that is just merely an opinion of yours. No, that is just, tawag dito, you are thinking of. Okay, may in my view ka pa. Okay, so that is being subjective. Pwede naman tayo mag-citate ng person, okay, or ng personality no, who is expert on that field. And then kung may sinabi siya tungkol doon sa issue na yon, or tungkol dun sa terminology niyo. Okay, for example, as Halliday 1973 argues, language is no blah blah blah. Okay? So pwede tayo mag-citate no, ng mga ganong klase ng information kagaya ng ginagawa sa research. No, that is being objective. Okay? So those are the three characteristics now of being of the academic language. Na? So of being formal, being objective, and being technical. So this is just a review lang naman when it comes to paggamit ng personal pronouns. Okay? So browse nyo na lang to later on. Okay, so when it comes to first person point of view, we do have the subject I and we. Second person point of view, we do use you. Third person point of view, we do use he, her, it, and they. Okay, at saka ang kanilang mga possessive pronouns at possessive adjectives. Okay, so you can browse that later on. Next, vocabulary words. Okay, so instead of saying this shows, no, meron pa tayong ibang way no, to say the word this shows. Okay, so let's say for example, this demonstrates, this illustrates, this indicates, no, this proves, no, this displays, this portrays, and this describes, so on and so forth. Okay, so too many to mention. Okay, so again, instead of saying this shows, no, we can use other ways to say that word. Okay, which is more academically, tawag dito, more academic rather, or more academically inclined. Okay, or more formal. Okay, so ayan yung mga words na yun. Ito pa yung iba when it comes to being informal to formal. Okay, so we do use inform rather than tell. We do use consume rather than use. Of course, depende pa rin no, sa inyong, what do you call this one, sa discipline. Okay, depende pa rin sa situation as well as sa tawag dito, sa paggagamitan. Okay, we should also use decrease as well, rather than shorten, principally rather than mainly, deficiency rather than locked, and also insane rather than mad. Okay, so be informal yon. Still, hindi pa rin dapat maging objective. Hindi pa rin dapat maging subjective rather. No, we should stick to being objective, formal, and technical. Okay, instead of using anyway, we should use nevertheless. Okay, instead of using I think, we can use in my opinion. Okay, we can also use acceptable in all right. Okay, tolerate in put up, establish in set up, or set up, then postpone in put off. Okay, so yan. You can browse this later. No, nasa Genyo naman ito. Napakadaming informal to formal language dyan. Okay, so next is being inferior. Okay, worse, preserve, no, sa keep, indistinct, pagdating sa dim, no, demise, pagdating sa death, no, occupation, sa job, pwede ring father, sa dad. Okay, we do not use that. Okay, when we are talking about father here. Sa si, pwedeng gamitin si observe. Sa need, pwedeng gamitin si require. Pwedeng gamitin sa live, si reside, Okay, sa whole, pwedeng gamitin ang entire. No, sa blow up, pwedeng gamitin ang word na explode. Pwede rin naman gamitin sa word na things, yung gratitude. Okay, so those are formal languages. Ayan. Avoid, evade, sick, ill, na give up, quit, empty, vacant. Okay, of mend, repair. Then idea, pwedeng notion. Okay, so to make it more formal. Okay? Yan, napakadami pang iba. Mad, insane, let, allow, eager, avid, there, challenge, hurt, damage, show, demonstrate. Yan. So, pwedeng gamitin natin si therefore. Okay, para hindi tayo puro so. Okay, choose naman is select. Okay, look for is to seek or search. No, maybe, perhaps. Okay, yung say no is to reject, and then buy is purchase. Okay, so ito paki-browse na lang po yung mga sumusunod na words para hindi tayo gumagamit ng puro very, very, very. Okay, ayan. No, meron tayong tayo dito single word, no, for those word na may very. Yan, so paki-browse na lang yan later on. Yan. So very afraid, fearful, di ba? Very calm, serene. Okay? So hindi yung puro very. Di ba? Meron naman tayong exact word, no, for those. Okay, kagaya nito, very accurate, di ba? We can say exact now. Yeah, no, very eager, keen, no, parched, very happy, jubilant, very valuable, no, precious, very tasty, delicious, very ugly, hideous, no, very angry, furious, very cold, freezing, very bad, awful, very hungry, no, famished. Okay, so those are words, no, to replace, no, when it comes to being formal. Yan. So napakadaming words niyan. So paki-browse po yan. Okay? So meron po tayong part 2 no, ng ating academic language, and that is all about grammar. Okay? And that grammar is, we will be discussing grammar next meeting na yun. No? Hindi naaabot yan. Okay? So parang sort of review lang to sa inyo na pagdaanan nyo naman na ang grammar, di ba? Pagdating sa nung high school kayo. Okay? So we will be having this short background lang ng grammar. So there is a family daw in London whose surname is Grammar. Now there is a couple, Mr. Noun and Mrs. Verb. Now the couple has 3 children, no, a son pronoun and 2 daughters, sina adverb at adjective. Now the son pronoun has to do all the work of his father in his absence. The 2 daughters naman love each other, but there is a difference in them. The adjective loves her father and brother and keeps praising them. Pagdating naman kay adverb, no, adverb loves her mother more and she always modifies her, no, when there is a need. Okay? So there are 2 servants in the family. Meron tayong tinatawag na sina preposition at conjunction. Okay? The preposition is the chief servant. Okay? He is the official servant of his master. The conjunction naman is the family servant and look after every member of the family. And lastly, the interjection joins the family in terms of joy and sorrow. Okay? So familiar tayo sa 8 parts of speech, sina interjection, okay? Conjunction, preposition, adjective, adverb, pronoun, verb, and noun. Those are the 8 parts of speech when it comes to grammar. Okay, we are going to talk about on next meeting is all about subject and verb agreement. Okay, that is just a form of a review lang naman para sa inyo, no? Okay, para lang ma-refresh sa atin. Okay, ano nga ba ang subject-verb agreement? Okay, meron tayong singularity there at saka plurality. Okay, singular subject takes singular verb. This is the tawag dito, the number 1 rule, di ba? Singular subject takes a singular verb. Plural subject takes a plural verb. Pero aside from that number 1 rule, there are other rules pa to follow. Okay, dapat natin yun lagi matandaan. Okay, and that will be for next meeting of ours. Okay, yung singularity tsaka plurality when it comes to grammar or subject-verb agreement. Okay, so we will be discussing those on the next meeting. So for now, you will be having your activity. Okay, so your activity, I will be sharing the activity on your Gmail account. Okay, so 2 minutes na lang din naman ang remaining time. Okay, in our Zoom. Okay, no need for you to rejoin. No, just continue doing your activity na lang. Okay, so on your activity, you have there 10 words. Okay, you have there 10 vocabulary words. So ang gagawin nyo lang doon is just to construct 2 sentences in each word. Okay, construct 2 sentences in each word. So 10 word yon, dapat 20 points yon kasi 2 sentences in each word. Again, construct a sentence for a senior high school like you. Okay, not a sentence na pang elementary. Okay, construct a sentence batay sa inyong kalagayan. Okay, so senior high school na po kayo, make your own sentence as a senior high school. Okay, not as an elementary student. Okay, so you have there 10 words. Again, 2 sentences each. Okay, you must construct 2 sentences each for those 10 words. Okay, so kung hindi nyo matatapos yung araw, that will serve as your assignment, but pakigawa with the remaining time of ours after the Zoom has ended. Again, no need to rejoin. No, just continue tawag dito, answering your activity. Okay, so I will be sharing the activity no after the Zoom meeting has ended kung hindi pa nakashare. Okay, so any question regarding academic language? If none, kindly hit the thumbs up button. All right, so that is all about academic language part 1. Okay, again, next meeting, we will be talking about the subject and verb agreement for grammar rules. Okay, so don't forget your activity. Okay, so you may now start answering that. No, mag-end na si Zoom. So let's call it a day. Goodbye and thank you everyone.